Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for helping on. It's another session today. If you're meeting me for the first time, my name is Ransom Nyima. I'm a radiography fourth year medical student based in Nigeria, and also I'm a medical content writer. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back in to watch my video. So today I have an amazing guest speaker all the way from the United States of America. Her name is Tamika. Hey, Tamika, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here.
Tell us more about your background.
Sorry. I'm still getting my voice together this morning as I'm sipping on my green tea. Excuse me. My allergies over here, a little dry mouth. So I've been drinking like a lot of water and stuff to help flush it out. But okay, so yes, I'm an award-winning author. I've been writing my entire life. I started when I was a child, thanks to my mother, and she always encouraged me to, follow that. And I started with a journal when I was about 7 years old. I wrote my first story, short story, when I was 9. I turned it into a little book for my mom and gave it to her. And even my pop, my grandfather, he was very blown away by how well written the story was. Like, he asked me where I copied it from. And I was like, I didn't copy it from anywhere. Like, I just wrote it. So yeah, that kind of like showed everybody that, well, maybe she has a natural talent for writing and she should stick with that. So I did. And I always had like teachers and stuff to encourage me. Did the school newspaper in high school. I was always trying to win writing contests and stuff throughout schooling. And I, of course, took like speech and drama in high school, and anything that had to do with English literature. Like, I was down for it. I was there. Fast forward to after high school, got my English literature degree. Worked on the school magazine, Stockpot, because I went to Stockton University, which is here in southern New Jersey, here in the States. And it's in Galloway Township, but they also have a new location in Atlantic City, which is actually my hometown. But that location wasn't open, of course, when I was a teenager. Go figure. But I did a whole bunch of writing throughout college, of course, with the essays. And I started freelancing between 2008, 2010. Started my first blog, PJs in a Movie. And then, which was like an online film review. And it's actually still up. If you look for it, it's actually still up on the internet. You can look at the film reviews that I did. But I also wrote for like eHow.com back when it's still new, when nobody had ever heard of it. Um, there was a college website named coed.com, as well as a bunch of smaller other ones like bloggernews.net or .com. It was for citizen journalists. So I kind of got my feet wet with being a citizen journalist on there. Stepped away from freelance writing to go back and get a secondary degree in social work from 2010 to 2013. And then I returned to freelance writing in 2019, and I haven't looked back. I self published my first book, Crying, Learning, and Laughing: Why Students Visit the Teen Center, in 2020. I actually got inspired to do that at the beginning of the pandemic, before it had really like spread and we went into lockdown. I got inspired because I was missing my kids. Like, I had left social work um, in May of 2019 to, pursue freelance writing full time. And I was missing my kids in early 2020. And I was going to do a blog series. And then, like, my higher self spirit, like, inspired me, like, if you're going to do a blog series, why not just turn it into a book? And that's exactly what I did. So I self published it. And then, like, less than a year later, I had written my second book, which is From Grunt Work to Light Work: A Homeowner's Guide to Attracting Buyers. And that was based on my time of selling my first home. And I sold that. And I talk about how I used the law of attraction, as well as, like, actionable steps like cleaning up the house, getting rid of clutter, and all of that stuff. So it was a nice combination of like actionable steps and also spiritual steps that you could take. And I ended up selling my first house, or attracting my ideal buyer. within a month of putting it on the market. So that was a nice relief that all the work that I was putting in and all the energy was paying off. Um,
Uh,
so, and then like life coaching, I transitioned to that in 2022, but we can get to that later if you want.
Amazing. Wait, thank you so much for telling us more about your backgrounds, which is an amazing introduction, and I believe that the audience now know a little bit more about you right now, Tamika. So I see also you're a non-fiction writer as well.
Hmm.
So that draws me to the first question for you. Can you share your journey, from freelance writing to non-fiction writer and a life coach? Tell us more about that.
Well, I will say that all the freelance writing that I have done thus far has been nonfiction. So I just wanted to put that out there. I haven't done or I haven't tackled fiction yet. It's on my list of things to do. In fact, I was offered a project recently, but because I'm in the process of relocating, I currently live in southern New Jersey still, but I'm actually in the process of selling my home and relocating to Boston, Massachusetts, which is up in New England. And it's not that far from where I live, but for anyone who knows, selling a home and relocating, it's a process. You know, it takes steps, but it's going really fast. However, I didn't want to throw my hat in the ring for that particular project just because I knew I wouldn't have the time to dedicate to it the way that I would want to. But as far as freelance writing, I've always done nonfiction. And then how I segued into being a nonfiction author, well, again, it started with, the first two books that I self published. And then I want to say it was sometime in 2021 where I crossed paths with this very well known freelance writer. He's actually put out books about his freelance writing journey. They're very inspirational. He's a prolific writer and reader, as a matter of fact. And we met on LinkedIn, which is how you and I actually met too. And he sent me this article about how he had been doing writing for the school library market. I had no idea what that even was. Like, I didn't know that there was a market for authors to get paid by project. I just naively always assumed that, like, every book that came out for kids, it was done the traditional way, meaning, you send in a proposal, you get it approved, yada, yada, yada. But no, there actually are publishers out there who hire authors on a project by project or work for hire basis. So what I started doing after I read his post is I just started doing research on like what companies did it. I found a very knowledgeable website that kind of listed all the publishers that this particular woman had used, and it was phenomenal. So I started going to their websites and seeing if they had any openings or anything. And I actually did find um, a few that had openings, and then I heard back from one, which was Redline Editorial. Like, I still write for them as well, so I don't mind sharing their name. And to date, I've written 5 books for them. I want to say it's 5. Sometimes I can't remember because I've written so many in a short period of time. But 2 of the books that I've written for them are actually sitting behind me on the shelf. This one is a autobiography, or not autobiography, a biography on Aretha Franklin. And this one is on Alcatraz and visiting Alcatraz. So those are some of the topics that I've written about thus far. And then, as luck would have it, I shared a TikTok about how you can be a freelance writer on LinkedIn. And one of my connections who works for Learner Publishing, I write for them as well, she was like, "Oh, we're always looking for authors, to do work for hire pieces and stuff." So she put me in contact with an editor. And to date, I've written 4 books so far, but I'm actually working on uh, 2 projects for them right now. Like, I can't talk about what they are now, but let's just say that the topics made me smile as a kid from the 80s. And I'll leave it at that. So when they come out, I'll definitely share it with you and like everybody, but I'm really excited about the topics that I get to research because they're fun. Not that the others weren't. because I wrote 4 books for Learner so far on baby animals, and I absolutely adore baby animals. They're my fave. Um, and that was a great project to do. I got to learn a lot and do a lot of research. I do research on all the books that I do. So as far as that goes and how I transitioned into life coaching, it was really more of a spiritual awakening and like a change in my life. In 2022, a long-term relationship that I was in, it ended. And it forced me to take like, a real assessment of where my life was going and all of that stuff. And I'm a highly intuitive person naturally. Everybody has psychic abilities. It's just that a lot of people have just been kind of programmed to think that it's nonsense or to fear, your own abilities, but we all have them naturally. And thankfully, I grew up in a family where it was okay to like talk about that stuff. You know what I mean? Like my mother, she started taking me to an astrologer, and the woman was also a psychic medium. So I got my natal chart read regularly starting at the age of 10, which I read astrological natal charts as well because I started learning from this woman named Penny as a kid. And for me, I had just written, because I had to add it up, I wrote like 6 manuscripts, like nonfiction manuscripts in 2022. I don't know how I did it. Like I was blown away when I saw that because I'm like looking at my emails of like when I submitted them and everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I wrote that many in 1 year on top of writing full time for a website called deliciously.com. They're under the Arena Group, and that company, 2 of their biggest brands are Sports Illustrated, which I think most people have heard of, as well as Parade Magazine, which is another big one. And they have a ton of newer ones. So Deliciously was one of their new ones, and I was working for them for about a year and a half. And at the end of 2022, I just got this like strong guidance from my higher self, from spirit, um, to go into life coaching. So I got my certification for life coaching and spiritual life coaching through this organization called Transformation Academy. And I purchased the courses online, udemy.com, but they also have their own website as well. And they're totally like, I believe they have certifications as well. So the courses were really good. I started my first company under a different name, but because I was in the midst of relocating from my ex's house because we were living together at the time, I was house hunting, I had all these personal changes going on. I just didn't have the energy to pour into my life coaching business. So I ultimately walked away from that particular startup. Um, I would say somewhere in like maybe mid 2023 after I had already been settled in here because it took me from August of 2022 until February of 2023 to close on my house and move out of my ex's house. So we were living together for quite some time after we were broken up, which was a life lesson in and of itself. But thankfully, we've gotten better, and he actually did help me move into the house that I'm in now. But that's really how my journey started. And what prompted me to go back to life coaching is the fact that I was downsized from my position at deliciously.com. That happened literally the last week of September of 2023. So that September was not necessarily a fun month for me in 2023. It's like I welcomed the change, but it was also, it kind of blindsided me. Like I was not expecting it, even though I knew that spirit was preparing me for it, if that makes sense. Because I kind of saw the writing on the wall with them starting so many brands back to back to back. And we had been hearing for quite some time that like readership just wasn't where it should be, not just for my brand, but like across the board. So I always knew that, downsizing could be a possibility. So, but when it happened, it really was surprising. But through that, once I like picked myself up, got myself together, get myself together in like October, it did. I renamed it, what it is today, which is Mystical Fire Ascension Life Coaching. And I got the name from the phoenix. If you've ever heard of the mythological creature, the phoenix, It's a creature that's a combination of, I want to say it's an eagle and like two other animals, but I can never remember what they are. But if you're familiar with like the Harry Potter series, there is a character named Fox the Phoenix, that was Dumbledore's phoenix, and I got inspired from that as well because I love the Harry Potter series. Very well written, and that's coming from somebody who loves to read and write. Very well written. So I'm a huge J.K. Rowling fan when it comes to the Harry Potter series because she knew her stuff and she did her research. But yeah, that's really how I transitioned into life coaching. I mean, it wasn't one step, it was like really a process. It was multiple steps.
Wow, that was a whole another process
I know
altogether.
it was a lot.
It was a lot, man. I know. I love the fact that you're really achieving some things in a short term. You know, writing such amount of books in a short term is really a an amazing thing to do. Kudos to you, and and also your experiences in your long time relationship made you to diverge into being a life coach. Helping others as well, which is an amazing narrative to share. So thank you so much, Tamika, for sharing your journey, as a freelance writer, into nonfiction writer as well, and into life coaching as well. Thank you so much. But I noticed something about you. But you write for children and teens as well, right?
Yes.
Amazing, amazing. So that would draw me to the second question for you. So tell me, what are the challenges and rewards, of writing for children and teens compared to adults as well? Tell us.
Well, I will say for the books that I've done, the first manuscript that I did, and I'm laughing because it was one of those moments where I was happy for the the blessing of the project. And then when I started getting into it after my outline had been approved, we get to the first chapter and it hits like I'm writing on a reading level that's too high. And they tell you like it has to be within a certain amount, a certain level, readability for the kids, whatever their target audience is supposed to be for that project. So I was using the website that they wanted me to, but because I was so accustomed to writing for adults and people that have like a higher reading level, that was the biggest challenge, I will say, just kind of like downplaying my writing style and using short sentences, short, concise sentences, and smaller words, like less syllables and stuff like that. So that's been the biggest challenge. And as far as like writing for teens, teens and I just have a knack for each other. I tend to understand them a lot more than I think a lot of adults do because for whatever reason, adults have the tendency to forget what it was like to be a child and a teen. They really do. And I don't know why I've been able to remember or put myself in those shoes more easily than other adults do. Maybe it's because I don't necessarily have children of my own yet. I haven't been blessed to be a mother yet, but I've worked with kids and I've worked with so many populations. I've worked with literally every population you could think of as a case manager, as a social worker. Because yes, I was a case manager and a social worker for several years, which I didn't even mention thus far. But yes, I was. I do have a degree in social work. Um, and so the challenge really for teens is just deciphering. You want to be honest with teens, but I also realize that some parents are more. I'm trying to I'm trying to get to the right wording for this. Some parents really want to shelter their teenagers a lot more than they really should. And I know that parents want to protect their kids. And I used to hear from my mother all the time, you'll see when you're a mom. And while I understand that, I also take into account what the feedback I used to get from my teens when they were my clients. And they appreciated my honesty with them. They appreciated me allowing them to talk with me without judgment. And I feel like I still bring that to the table when I'm writing for teens because they appreciate being able to express themselves openly to an adult, an authority figure, without the fear of being yelled at, reprimanded, possibly grounded, or worse, depending on the situation, because I've had to deal with teens who have been abused or allegations of it. And they just find that adults, when adults are honest with them, because they can smell BS a mile away, that helps me with my rapport. So when I'm writing for teens, because I've worked with them, I tend to think back to how it was when I was interacting with them. So I feel like it's just playing a balancing role of like, what do I want to share? And what do the editors want to share too? Because depending on who I'm writing for, the editors that I'm submitting the information to, they might, not want too much to be disclosed as well. So, it's a balancing act. And as far as like when it comes to adults, I will say it's also the reading level because not all adults have the same reading level. I was an adjunct English instructor at a community college for 4 years here in Atlantic or down in Atlantic County, where I was born and raised in Atlantic City, the home of the casinos. And, you know, working with them was eye opening because it wasn't just like incoming freshmen who were teenagers straight out of high school. I had adults that were in those courses that were starting college a little bit later in life, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Like it doesn't matter. You can go to college at any age nowadays if you have the desire to, gain that knowledge and that degree. And that's phenomenal. I encourage anybody who wants to continue their education throughout their life. Um, but just realizing that not everybody has the same reading level and doesn't comprehend as much as say I do. Um, that definitely is the challenge, and keeping it entertaining as well. You don't want your writing to be so dry and so technical that people kind of fall asleep, while you're reading. Yeah.
Amazing. I love the fact you balance those equations like writing for children, teens, and adults. These are a whole another. They are different creatures. The way you handle adults is different from the way you handle children and teens as well. So I love in the fact that you know their paces, like you know how to roll with all those people, which is an amazing something to do. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh,
But
you're welcome.
you talked about entertainment. You write for entertainment as well, right?
I have, yes. At one point, I was all about Hollywood and movies and going out there, and I initially had aspirations to be an actress at one point, but I am so shy. I really was. So I was like, well, if I don't become an actress, then maybe writing, being a screenwriter, or even moving to New York. But my mom's family is from New York, so I grew up going to Manhattan and the Bronx and stuff my entire life. And I even toured NYU to see if I wanted to go there for college, which at one point I was obsessed with going to college in New York. But ultimately, it just wasn't the decision that I made. Um, but yeah, as far as writing in the entertainment industry or writing about entertainment, I find it fun. I do. What I don't enjoy about it sometimes is that depending on who you're writing for, if it's for a publication, you don't always get as much creative freedom. There is some, but you don't always get as much creative freedom because I find that a lot of publications nowadays are deciding on what's trending as what they're going to go by in terms of like what you write about. Um, But I still enjoy, writing about like movies, TV shows, and celebrities. I even did quite a bit of that when I worked for delicious.com because we found that depending on who the celebrity was or what happened, we knew that we were going to have leadership for a post if it was about a celebrity. So yeah.
Do you write songs as well?
You know what? I used to write poems a lot. I had my first poem published when I was 15 years old, which was the same year I got my first byline in a publication. I got it for the Press of Atlantic City, my hometown, which it's behind me and it's framed. But I did get that, yeah, when I was 15 years old. So 15 was a popular year for me, a turning point for my writing career, believe it or not. And getting a byline, which for those people out there that don't know what a byline is, it's basically having a piece of yours published with your name attached to it. So to have my own byline in a newspaper like the Press of Atlantic City, it was a big deal for a high schooler. And they had a section called Generation Next. And it was a film review for the movie My Best Friend's Wedding. And it's still one of my favorite movies. So, I absolutely love that.
Amazing. I love the fact that you enjoy writing all this, niches, without getting burned out, So these
Whew.
explanations you gave me, is what drugged me to ask you this question. Did you see that word I used? Drugged. So you made me you kind of like drugged me to ask you these questions right now. I was on
Okay.
my own. I was on my own. It just drugged me. It just I woke my spirit to ask that question. I was on my own, so you made it. You made me curious. So
Okay.
this is for. So how do you write about topics as diverse as entertainment? You also write for food, you and also mental health.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So and make them resonate with your audience. So tell us how you write about topics as diverse as entertainment, food, and
Hmm.
mental health, and also make them resonate with your audience. Tell us.
I mean, I feel like if you're going to put yourself out there as a writer, you need to be prepared to write about pretty much any topic for the most part, at least if you're starting out, because you can interview like 1,000 different freelance writers and you will probably hear 1,000 different answers as far as whether you should niche down or whether or not you should just be a generalist freelance writer. I will say that, niching down somewhat, it can help you to a certain degree to have your audience find you. But at the same time, I feel like niching down too much can also be very limiting for you. So it's important to be versatile when you're going to be a freelance writer because by being versatile, you never know what opportunities could come your way. Like, aside from writing about entertainment and food and even mental health. I've written about a slew of different topics because when I first started out, I was writing for a company called The Hoff, and they're one of those agencies where the freelancers, at least this is how it was back in 2019, 2020. I don't know if it's changed, but I think it's still the same, where basically if you write for them, there's always like a list of different projects that you can choose from. And then you just pick and choose what you want to write about. So in any given day, I could have been writing about, let me just think of like some of the topics that I wrote about: bachelorette parties, like destinations for that, destination weddings, traveling, as well as I wrote about roofing. I've written about roofing before. I've written about how to clean out your sink and your refrigerator and your carpets. And like, it's just really the sky's the limit in terms of like what you can write about as a freelance writer. But in terms of like, making them resonate with everyone, honestly, I immerse myself, or I try to, in whatever topic I'm writing about. So that's why now that I've been doing freelance writing for so long, I'm willing to be more choosy when it comes to the different projects that I take on and the different jobs that I look at. Because if the job is, yes, it's paying well, but I'm not really resonating or connecting with the topic and what I have to write about, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work because it's going to feel like work. And I don't like my writing to feel like work all the time. I like it to be as enjoyable as possible. And mind you, there are certain things that come with being a writer that sometimes you don't enjoy, like having to do like revisions and the edits and stuff. But I will say that for the most part, now there's always exceptions to this. When it comes to my writing, I do such a great job of self editing and proofreading that normally whatever I submit doesn't usually need a lot of revision. And I say that with a lot of pride because being a perfectionist is something that I've had to work on because we should never really aspire to be perfect because nobody's perfect. You know what I mean? Like, and that's a heavy pressure to put on yourself. And we shouldn't be doing that to ourselves, not at all. But we get so programmed again to want to be a perfectionist, but that's just not obtainable. And it will end up literally burning you out and driving you crazy, thinking that things have to be perfect all the time when what you're striving for will never really be achievable, if that makes sense. So,
Amazing, amazing. You have a lot of, niches you're right on, and I love the fact that you try to minimize all those things. Like you put them together
yeah,
really well, which is an amazing stuff. But
thanks.
I want you to tell me something. In a nutshell, we talked about how you're making all these rhymes and all these niches, entertainment, food, mental health, and others, right? To make them resonate with your own audience. That means your own targeted audiences, which is amazing stuff. You shared that strategies you use, which is amazing stuff. So how about people that are not in your target? For instance, you want to write for entertainment or mental health. Someone that has a background in engineering or a
Hmm.
background in tech or a background in maybe law, background as a journalist or something that wants to know more about mental health. How do you use your words to make that person up from your niche to know what you're talking about?
In my writing,
Yeah, tell us.
just try to be as simple as possible. Try to be clear and concise because any writer, if you're doing it well, I should be able to pick up an article that was written for, say, an engineer and still be able to grasp the concept and the information that's presented without having too many, any, lack of clarity, basically. So when you're writing something, if you're doing it as a freelancer and you're just posting it without having an editor review it first, which a lot of people do, I do that myself. Sometimes I have to take a step back and walk away from it before I post it and then come back to it and reread it and then try to turn on that editor part of me and be like, well, is there a part of this that doesn't make sense? Should I be a little bit more clear in what the statement is saying? Because I've had that happen to me myself from editors. They'll send something back and they'll just be like, can you rewrite like this one like sentence here because we're not sure if the readers or the kids will understand it. Just make it a little bit more clear. So that's what I try to do. I try to, eliminate any type of confusion before a piece gets published. It's just anything can be, how should I say this? Anything can be written clearly if you take the time to use the right words, basically.
Hmm, hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Tamika. How you write, to make a wider audience from your niche to know what you're talking about through your writings, which is an amazing stuff to do. So, tell us about the few problems writers face in general, in your own perspective, and in a nutshell. Tell us the problems we writers face. Tell us.
Oh my goodness, there's a lot, but I'll just give you a few. Um,
Yeah.
for many people, and this really does not happen to me. I'm one of those people where I don't get writer's block. I really don't. Like the last time that I had it really badly was when I was in college. And that is because I was so tired from working as well as doing my other courses and then having to do my English literature courses because those English literature courses are no joke. And your professors will tell you not to take more than one English course at a time. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Like, it'll take me forever to get out of here if I do that. And it's not feasible. It really isn't. And I think that goes for anybody who's majoring in something, you're going to have to double up and sometimes triple up on courses that are specific for your major at one point. So I had to just kind of suck it up. But yeah, like I felt very creatively depleted, I would say my junior and at times my senior year of my English literature um, degree. So, yeah, but that falls into doing too much, not setting aside enough time to rest because I wasn't, and I was working, and it was just a lot. It was a lot going on. There really was. Um, And so aside from you have to take care of yourself, and that goes for not just getting enough rest, but also eating well. You want to make sure that you're taking supplements, that you're drinking plenty of water. I do not mess with caffeine. I walked away from caffeine in 2019, and I'm very choosy with when I ingest it. I love chocolate, so I have to eat that sparingly because chocolate does have caffeine in it. And if I choose to eat it, I try not to eat it too late in the day, but it doesn't always work that way. But if I do choose to eat it later in the day, I have to be mindful that, okay, if I eat it now and it's like 6 o'clock, there's a good chance that I won't be ready to go to sleep at like 9 or 10. So, I just remind myself. So taking care of yourself plays into being a better writer, I think. Because when you're not feeling well, you're not in alignment with source. And I firmly believe that my creativity and all of that, the reason why I write so well is because I'm so connected with source, because we are sparks of source. We're all from the creator anyway, so we use that energy and we channel it. But if there's any type of blockages or you're tired, that's going to cause an issue. Other issues that I find, aside from like self care, is that the market really has changed. It really has changed. And I didn't realize that until I started looking for another writing job on LinkedIn. And I saw that a lot of people, a lot of freelancers and even writers for publications had been laid off or their clients let them go. So, like, how you approach that, I feel like the rules have changed, but the pool of people and writers looking for like the same jobs as you has increased. So you just have to be more mindful, and also just willing to do other things to get your name out there. I will say networking, it definitely does play a role in the type of opportunities that you find, because a lot of the really good golden opportunities for writers, especially, they're not posted online. It's word of mouth. It is. And it kind of sucks at times to know that, but it's the truth. It really is. So dealing with gatekeepers of projects is something that you have to contend with. But it's all about treating people the way you want to be treated. Because I love that quote where it says, people don't remember what you necessarily said to them, but they remember how you made them feel. But I feel like it goes both ways, because sometimes you can say something to somebody and it gets an emotional reaction from them. Um, And if it's a positive, they're going to remember you forever just for saying something as kind as thank you, or giving them a compliment and like really meaning it, not just saying it to say it, being genuine. So it's the truth, being able to network and thinking outside the box. You know what I mean? Like I have like at least four different ebook ideas. Two or three I've already started. One I just put out back in February. It was my 11th book, and it was called Put Down the Phone, Picked Up the Pen, How I Wrote 10 Books in 3 years. So, it's 4 years. I think it's 4 years now. Yeah. So I had to change the title. So yeah, it's been interesting to say the least. But just being versatile, networking will help you in terms of finding jobs that are those are definitely the two things that I can think of. And then of course, people will get into the whole pay aspect. The pay aspect for freelance writers seems to be very wide. It seems to be very wide across the board in terms of where you live, and not just like state to state, but it's true, but also country to country. So it's like knowing this can create issues for freelance writers as well.
I do agree. I do agree. These are amazing problems you stated and how to solve them. Thank you so much. I love the fact you talked about word to mouth job opportunities when you network, which is I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So we have one more question for you,
Okay.
Tamika. This question might look a little tricky for you, but you're gonna have to share your narratives on that question. All right.
Okay.
So it goes this way: what advice would you give to writers looking forward to breaking into the B2C market, you know, or win awards for their non-fiction writing? I tell you, the question is really, really very tricky. So tell us your own narratives in a nutshell.
Okay, so you want advice on people breaking into both B2C, and what was the second part of the question?
Looking forward to winning awards, for their non-fiction writing. Yeah.
I'm sorry. You were very low on the second part. Looking for what? For,
Looking forward to winning awards for their
looking
non-fiction.
forward to winning awards. Okay. Okay. All right. So for the first part, I will say what worked for me. I find that when you're breaking into freelance writing, and especially depending on the websites or publications that you're going to be working for, I, I almost feel like B2C is it falls under content writing. So B2C is a little easier to find. At least that's been my experience. My experience as a freelance writer is going to be different than yours or anybody else's. We all have different experiences, even if we're doing like the same job, the same position. So just being mindful of that, you can do a quick Google search, honestly, and look up B2C writing jobs and openings and see what falls, down for you. I will say joining groups has been very helpful. The job that I had at Deliciously, I actually got connected with my future editor there through a group on Facebook, and that's how she found me. She had posted it on a Facebook group. So joining writer groups on Facebook or even LinkedIn is very helpful. I know Twitter, or now known as X, is still a hotspot for editors to use as well and post job openings. So I would highly encourage any writer to go on there as well. But also, if you're a new writer and you don't really have any, how would you say, writing samples, create some writing examples, because they're going to want to see if you can write well. And you don't have to get paid to write writing samples. You can start by creating your own blog online, which is what I did a long time ago, or You can post on websites for free, like medium.com. Medium is a great way to get your foot in the door and say, hey, I have published work for people to read. And you can send people the link to whatever you posted. And nobody, it doesn't matter if you weren't paid for it or not, you're still going to have writing samples to back up whatever it is you're trying to write about in the B2C, um, you know, writing field. And as far as um, the awards, when it came to the awards that I received as a writer, I went after them. You know, there's a lot of debate, well, at least I think so, between writers and whether or not you even want to win an award or whether you don't. For me personally, I had heard that it gives more authenticity and it shines a light on your book if it's won an award, which there is some degree of truth to that. You know, awards just tend to spark people's interest and be like, oh, your book won an award. Like, what was it for? And what category? You know, stuff like that. And my first book, Crying, Learning, and Laughing, it has won 4 awards. So I'm proud of that. You know, now are there entrance fees? Most of the time, yes, because they do that to show that the award is legitimate. Like everybody seems to think that a lot of these awards that, like, say celebrities win. I'll use the Hollywood star, you know, the Hollywood star that so many people get. There is a hefty price tag to get that star. They don't just go out and give them to people, but most people are not aware of that. I think the fee now is like $30,000 or something like that. Like, you know, it's definitely something that it's a personal choice, but personally, I don't have any regrets. One of my medals is behind me. It's what the book is. I actually got to go to the book award in Miami in late 2022 for the same book. So it was nice to meet other authors and network. And it was used as a networking event as well, which is what I liked about it. They had workshops and stuff about how you can promote your book and exchange cards and stuff like that. So I still keep in touch with one of the ladies that I met there. So they can. It's about how you utilize them. If it's just an award, just for an award's sake, you want to find out whether or not it comes with any purpose. Like some of the awards I've gotten, I was on a podcast or a radio show and along with the award. So it should be able to leverage your name out there more as an author. So I
Thank
think
you
it's
so much.
just do your background because some of them are not as legitimate as you.
I do agree. Thank you so much, Tamika. You've been an amazing guest speaker thus far. So if you love this content, do to subscribe, like, and share to your network. And if you want to connect with Tamika, we're gonna put all the details to her in the YouTube description below. To also as well reach out to her for life coaching or any writing opportunities. You know, she's there for you. Thank you so much, Tamika. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a pleasure.